Hello, and welcome to Rule of Thirds, an arts and culture podcast with an emphasis on film criticism. Every month, we'll watch 3 films based around a central theme, then discuss and debate them amongst ourselves. My name is Stephen Foxworthy, and with me are my esteemed colleagues, Samuel Dumas and Caleb Dunkerson. Good day, gentlemen.
What's going on?
Yeah.
So before we get started, gentlemen, let me ask you that one question that's burning on everyone's minds. What are you drinking tonight?
Well, I am drinking Mississippi Mud.
That would be Sam.
It.
That would be Sam over there who is drinking that. I realized that we did not actually put a voice to a name. So
no, you didn't.
Yeah,
you had your chance and you blew it.
This is Caleb talking right now. I am drinking a delicious St. Bernardus Abbot 12.
Good choice. Good choice.
Good.
You made it prestigious for the opening podcast.
For the inaugural episode, I figured
right.
We got to go all out.
Absolutely, which is why I'm sipping on some Blanton's bourbon here from the heart of America, Kentucky. And oh boy, howdy, is this going down smooth.
Well, I feel like my drink doesn't compare to yours, but from where I live, this is going all out.
And where is that, Sam?
Let's not talk about that.
That's fair enough.
Okay.
All right. So today we're going to examine the life stories of men who never lived. Basically, we're doing fictional characters today. From wealthy heirs to average Joes to self-made men, Hollywood has been creating people's lives for as long as they've been making movies. And we've selected 3 of the most iconic tonight. Each of these 3 films are significant because they each garnered Academy Award nominations for Best Picture, and none of them won it. Someone else won the award every stinking time. So if I could, I'll go ahead and start us off. I'll introduce our first film. Orson Welles' 1941 classic, Citizen Kane, has been heralded by many as the greatest film of all time. It unravels the life of Charles Foster Kane, a media magnate and yellow journalist, in the days surrounding his death. As reporters, wow, I can't even read what I typed. As reporters speak to the people who knew him in an attempt to find the meaning behind his last words, we are taken through Kane's life from his rise to prominence, his fall from grace, and subsequent withdrawal from the public eye. Who's got the next film?
That would be Caleb. Or I guess no. Me. I guess I do. That is me.
We planned, I promise.
Yeah. Well, Sam.
The outline doesn't say, so that's where it gets tricky.
Well, the second movie you'll be viewing or discussing, actually, I already viewed it like 8 times, is It's a Wonderful Life. According to the IMDb synopsis, an angel helps a compassionate but desperately frustrated businessman by showing him what life would have been like if he never existed, which I think is one of the most BS synopses of that movie I've ever heard.
It is, because it's only like the last 15 minutes of the movie.
It is. That movie is absolutely insane. We'll talk about how insane this movie is, but it follows this fellow as his life is just awful, and it's a depressing movie. We'll get to it. It's a movie. There's stuff that happens in it. Yeah. And whatever IMDb tells you, it happens like the last 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Right. IMDb only summarizes the last 15 minutes of movies.
This is
honestly
wretched first 3 hours of the movie.
They probably could have easily cut that last 15 minutes off of there and made it a totally different movie.
Yeah. No, if they had, it would have been a totally different movie.
Much different.
It might have actually won Best Picture.
Yeah. Probably so.
Yeah, it would have been way too far ahead of its time. Wait, like it would be like ahead of our time.
Yeah.
We wouldn't be prepared for that.
All right.
And speaking of vastly different endings, Caleb.
I guess I will introduce our third movie, which is There Will Be Blood. And I took notes on these movies, so I have meticulous notes on what I think about each one of them. And I decided for my synopsis, I would just tell you what I wrote down for There Will Be Blood. And I wrote down just one word in my notes for this whole movie, and that word is anger. I feel like that pretty much summarizes the entire movie.
If that's good.
But I'll go ahead and read the actual the description, so you have a little bit more to go on. There Will Be Blood is a story of ambition, faith, and oil. Paul Thomas Anderson's There Will Be Blood tells a story of Daniel Plainview, a self-made oil man with an unflinching and unyielding desire to succeed at all costs. Joined by his son, H.W. Plainview, and seemingly opposed by charismatic country preacher Eli Sunday, Daniel's life unfolds as a series of competitions between himself and everyone else he knows. From the moment he first strikes oil to his chilling final proclamation.
The word is proclamation.
I know, but it just didn't work out. It's cool though.
That happens. So what we're doing with these three films, we're going to discuss them each individually, and then we'll discuss them as a group and how they each work within the theme of life story. So that's kind of our plan for the evening. And
I think to be very, very blunt and to make things very clear, this is about the movies that encompass more or less the entirety of someone's life.
Right.
Like specifically the entirety, like from childhood to more or less death.
More or less, sometimes less.
Yeah, sometimes less. For a couple of these, it does, but for basically the entirety of their life. So we're very clear.
Right. Yeah. That's kind of what our basis was in selecting these films in particular.
Yeah.
So let's go ahead and start with Citizen Kane, my favorite film of all time, which everyone says is a cliche. I swear
I just don't understand how that's even humanly possible.
What,
how is it possible? How is that possible? It's anyone's favorite film. I mean, I get it being objective. Like, this is obviously objectively the best movie ever made, but how is it personally your favorite film?
I don't see how it's even obviously objectively the best movie ever made, but
that's argue. I mean,
yeah. You said objectively.
There are arguments.
Objectively, there are, but
I will not be arguing those arguments.
I might.
Well, you would.
It's my favorite film of all time. Of course.
How?
No, I mean, every time I watch the film, I experience it in a different way and from a different angle. And part of that is the way the story's told. Part of it is the multi-person point of view that kind of hops around from person to person to person as it goes. And I think that I'm looking for something different. Every time I come to the movie, I'm someone different. And so I'm seeing it differently every time I watch it. I'm noticing things I didn't notice before. I'm picking up on things I didn't pick up on before. And I've read so much about this film anyway, but I'm still finding new things about it. I'm still discovering things about it. And there's a timelessness to it, despite the fact that it's over 70 years old, 75 years old now. I mean, there's a timeless quality to it. It's just an absolutely wonderful film.
I see.
So that's why it's my favorite. Although most people I tell that to are like, "Oh, you're like a walking cliche," and I'm like, "Hey,
more or less,
it's a wonderful movie."
I agree.
I guess it's okay to be a walking cliche. I mean, nobody's gonna, nobody's gonna like run down the street and stab you.
Yeah, you at least gave a personal reason, not just the acting and the cinematography. You gave a personal reason. That's what I was looking for.
I mean, the acting and cinematography of it are great, but that's ultimately not why I go to see a film. I go to see a film.
I mean, my favorite movies of all time are definitely not objectively very good, but they're my favorites personally.
Right.
I tend to. I feel the same way about my favorite movies too. I'm like intimately aware of how not necessarily good my favorite movies are, but I love them for me and not for anything that anybody else thinks.
Yeah. So cool. Now that that's cleared up and justified.
Yeah. So Citizen Kane has been called the greatest film of all time. But ultimately, at the end of the day, it's about the life of Charles Foster Kane. From his youth in, Little Salem, Colorado.
Sounds good to me.
I think that's right. I think I remember that correctly. To his adulthood in Xanadu down in Florida.
Fact checking.
Yeah, Caleb, check those facts for me, please. Caleb is our resident fact checker, which we decided 5 minutes before the podcast started.
Due to circumstances.
Which we won't get into right now.
They're funny, though.
They are. We're comedic geniuses over here. But from, it basically follows him from his childhood to his death. In fact, the film opens on his death, which one other film has a similar tack. It kind of picks up at the end of the film, and then we go forward from there. So it's a very interesting. And I mean, it's been done to death now, so we don't find it that novel anymore. But there was certainly a novelty to it when it happened. The brilliant opening crawl through the gates of the abandoned Xanadu as we get closer and closer and closer to his bedroom where the single light is, just dramatically, it was very building cool. That tension. Yeah, it's a great film, guys. I'm just saying.
I mean, I'm not here to tell you that it was a bad film. That's not my objective today.
Okay. Well, what is your objective, Caleb?
Well,
What did we like about Citizen Kane?
My objective is to tell the world that Orson Welles is he's just the best. He's so great.
Yeah,
And
I mean,
so okay, there's a moment. There's a moment. The first moment that Orson Welles is really on screen, and he owns it so incredibly hardcore. It's amazing.
is that your first introduction to Orson Welles?
That's this
Like first real introduction to his
this
acting?
movie is the only Orson Welles movie I have seen, but I've seen this movie before. It wasn't like last week I saw Orson Welles and I was like, oh my gosh, it's Orson. This is Orson Welles. No, I've seen this movie before.
I had that when I watched the movie The Third Man. I'd never seen a real Orson Welles movie except for like Transformers, the 1980 movie.
That doesn't count.
See, I haven't even seen that.
That doesn't count. So my first like actual introduction was that, and he just walks on screen and I'm like, oh my gosh, this man is the greatest actor of all time.
Part of that is the role, though, because all he does is smile in that first scene in The Third Man, and you're like, he's the greatest actor of all time. I mean, literally, that's all he does. He takes a step forward and he smiles, and then takes a step back.
That's true. Like, I saw that. I'm like, whoa, what's happening? What is happening?
We'll have to do A Third Man another time. That's another discussion for another time.
That's how we all feel when we just see Orson Welles for the first time. Like, what's this guy? Just looking at him, you know, he's the best thing ever.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that first scene where what's the trust manager's name? I can't remember his name. Yeah, so where Thatcher says,
Thatcher,
where it says, "This is your idea of how to run a newspaper," and he turns around and says, "I have no idea how to run a newspaper." It was so magical. His face, his way of speaking, it was beautiful. I was like, at that moment, I was like, yes, this is the best movie ever made. No,
and that's all it takes. Caleb just needs to see a pretty face, and he's hooked.
No, it might have been like the best introduction of a person of a character in a scene in a movie I've ever seen, because it was just so perfect. And I was like,
there's something to that, because he's only really discussed up to that point. You've talked about him. You've seen him die. They show the newsreels. I mean, so you've heard a bunch of stuff about him. So when you finally are introduced to him, you have this expectation. And if that expectation is even remotely met, you're like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. Which is why he's so great in The Third Man too. You spend the entire first half of the movie talking about who Harry Lime is, and then all of a sudden you see him smile on the street, and you're like, yes, give that man an Oscar.
Yeah, so that's all I have to say about this movie.
Oh, I have so much.
That is not true, by the way, but that's all I have to say about that.
I would hope not. Sam, initial impressions on Citizen Kane. I know you've seen this movie quite a bit, like I have.
Okay, so Citizen Kane, the most overrated. That was pretty good. I liked it a lot, actually.
How dare you, sir?
I mean, yes, he is the most. I don't know. It's good.
Complete thought, Sam.
Don't get me wrong. Orson Welles, he's phenomenal, and I just don't think it's his best movie. I don't think it's the best movie of all time, even objectively speaking.
What would you say is objectively the greatest movie of all time, Sam?
Have you heard of the movie The Room?
Oh, I hate you so much right now for even suggesting that, even in jest.
I don't even know if you could objectively have the greatest movie of all time.
So you don't think any film can have the distinction of being the greatest film ever made?
No.
Of all the films that have been made, though, one of them has to be the greatest. Why not Citizen Kane?
Why? Because the narrative, it kind of annoys me.
Well, okay, that's a good place to start, Sam. What about the narrative annoys you?
I don't know.
Sam, you're really not helping your case here, bud.
I'm not. Sorry, I'm doing technical things over here. Let me get focused. Citizen Kane. I guess we should have started off with, I'm going to be biased against all of these movies because I don't think a movie can even come close to capturing the entirety of a human's life. There's so many things. There's so much dynamic into it. 2 hours is way too short to capture that. I think you can capture aspects of a person's life, but to capture the entirety of someone's life is a futile task. And I think he tried to attempt a futile task. And I don't think he failed miserably, but I don't think it lived. It's just,
You think the whole construct is a failed construct? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, it's just the concept. Yeah, it's just trying to make a movie about someone's life.
I agree with Sam about I come from the same perspective as Sam about this, about trying to do a film on someone's life is like, you're pretty much it's a fool's errand. You're probably not going to succeed because you just don't have enough time. But I actually think that Citizen Kane is a good example of a movie that actually does this well, because I think that it frames this narrative of a life story in such a way that it actually kind of delivers for the most part. I mean, not perfectly. I mean, you can't. I think that it's a misconception that this is a life story, because what is actually being told here is what this is. It's actually like a mystery. It's a mystery being solved, and you the viewer in this film, I think, assume the place of the reporter. And so what you're doing is you're not being told a life story. You're trying to discover what you can about the story of this man's life. And what we know when we come out the other end of the movie, we don't know is accurate at all. We just know that it's what we've been told.
Yeah.
And so I think actually Citizen Kane manages to kind of sidestep the issue of trying to summarize an entire person's life by basically telling you that what you're seeing in this movie about this guy's life may not actually be accurate at all.
And I think that's a really good point, because what we're seeing, or what we're meant to be seeing, and I have some thoughts as to how well this is actually pulled off, but what we're meant to be seeing is not Charles Foster Kane as he is, but Charles Foster Kane as he is perceived by everyone who knew him. And that's kind of the whole conceit. That's what Welles was driving at when he and Mankiewicz sat down to actually write the script. But that having been said, I think the thing that works the most against that conceit is Orson Welles himself in his performance as Charles Foster Kane. Because we don't see, and I was distinctly watching for this as I watched the film, because I wanted to see how well or how much Kane changed from person to person, from perspective to perspective. And what happens is Orson Welles is such a good actor, and he understands Kane so well that his portrayal of Kane is consistent throughout.
Right. He just plays Citizen Kane. He doesn't,
exactly.
Or he plays Charles Foster Kane. He doesn't play people's perception of Charles Foster Kane.
Exactly. And so we're still seeing him from different perspectives, and to some degree the story is colored by those perspectives.
Right.
Like, because Susan Alexander sees him as charming, Welles plays him charming, but really he's always been charming. He's charming with Thatcher.
He's charming with Thatcher.
You know,
that first scene
that so charmed Caleb. You know, he's
charmed the pants right off me.
Ooh, boy. You're going to be a president's wife one day if you're not careful, Caleb. But therein, I think that's the weakness inherent within the conceit, is Welles himself is just so good of an actor that he can't help but play Kane consistently as he is from start to finish. And so to some degree, I agree with you, Caleb. We don't really see Kane's full life. We do see it peripherally from the view of others, but because of Welles's performance, I would argue we do get a glimpse of his life and of who Kane really is.
Okay. Yeah, I get what you're saying there.
Hearing both these opinions, I've only seen this movie like once or twice. Hearing both of these opinions, my perception is slightly skewed more towards the Caleb side of things. It makes a little more sense, because I ended with the movie like absolutely not caring anything at all about Orson Welles' character, Citizen Kane. Charles Foster Kane. I just didn't care about his character. So I'm like, that's why I always was against movies that tried to capture entirety of lives, because I can never relate to anything they do at all, because there's just so much. But if you look at it objectively, like the reporter, I mean, they walked away, they didn't care either. At the end of the scene, as they're burning all of this stuff, they didn't care. Like I didn't care.
Do you think that because the reporter is obviously the place character for the audience, he's our perspective POV character, do you think that played a part in your lack of concern for the person of Charles Foster Kane?
I think that did. I think I was tricked by my own concept of these type of movies. Because I always go in, because as the movie's trying to paint someone's life, but I never thought about it the way Caleb was talking about it. How if you look at it like you're a reporter just trying to piece together what people say about him, because honestly he's going to go home to his wife and kids. He doesn't care.
Exactly.
He's going to move on with his own life.
And I think that the ending where he kind of just blows the whole thing off is meant to kind of signal us to be like, us as the viewer to be like, oh, hey, you know, we don't really care either. Because this is just some rich asshole that nobody really cares about,
But then
because everybody is just some rich asshole that nobody really cares about.
But I think the sled, in a sense, kind of takes us back to and kind of gives us a moment to start caring. And I think if you don't care a little bit at that point, you're just a jerk.
I don't,
because everyone's got
because
everyone's got their little tiny bits of humanity to them. I mean,
I
if
think
you care about every single one, you're going to be a bleeding heart.
I think that was meant to be, I think like in the sense that the rest of the movie is meant to be us seeing things through other people's eyes. I think that was supposed to be our one moment of seeing things through Charles Foster Kane's eyes.
As close as we come. But then what happens directly after that is we zoom back out over his lifetime accumulation of crap. Mm-hmm. And we come back out to that fence with that sign that just says no trespassing, which is one of the first things we see in the film.
Yeah.
It's that idea of coming back to Caleb's point. Can you ever really know someone? And I think that
maybe we're even tricked by the whole Rosebud thing. Maybe that is like a red herring to mislead us.
Wells would say so. Wells would absolutely say so. Because the whole idea is basically what you're saying. How much can you really know someone? So back off and quit trying, jerk.
I think our perception is supposed to be that in a way he regrets all of his life because his simple life, as a child with his mother and his father who beats him clearly. was in some way something that he envies and wishes to go back to, but at the same time we're making that assumption of him.
Well, true, but that's also, I mean, you could argue that's the last time he really knew love. Yeah. And I mean, the whole film, they make a really big point. Mm-hmm. Jed Leland says you can't love anyone else because you don't have any love to give. He and Susan makes the observation, you buy things because you want people to love you. And so he doesn't. He's trying to get love in whatever way he can, and he's ultimately unsuccessful. And so his final moments are of potentially, and we can only surmise, the last time that he genuinely felt love, which was his mother's love.
But then we get told no trespassing, and then it says, and it kind of slaps us in the face with, you don't know. You only think you know.
Exactly. And that's why I said, presumably, because ultimately at the end of the day, we don't know what was going through his head.
Ultimately, there was really no point for this movie to exist.
You could say the same about a lot of movies.
I think you could say the same about every movie.
The fact that we're talking about it, I think, and the fact that we're debating it and discussing it, this is, I think, what Wells wanted, this kind of conversation, and for us to be thinking about it and picking it apart, and ultimately for him to be remembered for something.
I wonder how the movie would be. What if Orson Welles knew about Facebook? I wonder how different the movie would be if he set in place when Facebook existed.
Well, I think it's fair to say that would change everything, Sam.
Who was he really? A guy who liked to play Candy Crush. That's all he was.
A guy who posted pictures of his animals all the time and put hashtag such and such animal of Instagram.
Not that we're calling out anyone specifically here.
Stupid animals. Anyways.
And my thinking is, are these animals really of Instagram? Because they don't seem to be involved in this whole process. To be of something, don't you have to be like an active participant in that thing?
Yes. My cat Fritz actually is one of the original programmers.
Oh, really? Well,
yes.
Excuse me, princess.
You named your cats after Fritz Lang and Thea von Harbo, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I thought so.
Nazi filmmaker and Jewish filmmaker, respectively.
And they both they escaped though to
she didn't. She helped Hitler.
Did she really?
Yeah, she made movies for him. She got put in a British internment, like a British prison camp after the war.
Really? I did more research on her.
Oh yeah, she was like, no, I was not a Nazi. I was a German. But and then he even said that. He even said she wasn't a Nazi. She was a German, which is a whole conversation for another time.
Yeah, when we actually talk about a Fritz Lang film, we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
Which I think we have one on the schedule, but that's neither here nor there at this juncture.
So,
any final thoughts on Citizen Kane as life story or just in general?
I think that Citizen Kane kind of I think my kind of final thought on it is that I think it's kind of a deconstruction of the life story format of storytelling, more so than it is actually a telling of a life story.
Interesting.
So,
I personally, to say to that is that Caleb that we're putting too much thought into what probably was just supposed to be a mere piece of entertainment, and that it's.
I don't think anything. I don't think we can call anything that Orson Welles made a simple piece of entertainment.
Did you see?
I don't know. I kind of disagree that
He didn't direct The Third Man.
That you.
I was gonna say that.
I kind of disagree that you would make the assumption that the people who created it didn't have any kind of higher thought about it, even if it was intended to be a piece of entertainment for people to consume. I mean, these people are artists, and they are probably thinking about stuff more in depth than would this be fun to put on the screen, and would people like it? At least to a certain degree.
Is he really an artist?
Yes.
Anything is art, so everyone's an artist.
Hey, guess what we're doing right now, guys? We're making art.
We are.
Doubtful. Okay, I'm just being facetious. So there is one last tidbit there that I want to discuss. That a lot of people think this is like how innovative it was for his first film he ever made. That's not true at all. This is not his first movie.
It's not innovative because I don't
think people are saying it's innovative for his first film. I think people are saying it's innovative for the time.
No. People are saying like one of the things it was heralded as his first movie, and like it's like a common. It's a common myth that it's his first movie. It's everyone thinks Orson Welles' first movie. He hit the stain running strong. I mean, your first movie you make is like the greatest movie ever made, basically.
Where do you go from there but down?
Yeah, but it's not really his first movie. He made a bunch of short films up until that point.
Like 2 or 3. Yeah, Sam and I we went down to Bloomington a couple years ago to the Orson Welles Symposium. Actually, it was last year. It was on the year of his 100th birthday. But we actually saw his very first film, Hearts of Darkness? No, that's not it. Hearts of Age.
I actually don't know what it's called.
I have it written down here somewhere.
Yeah. I don't remember. I remember it. I just don't know what it's called. I wasn't paying attention.
I think it's Hearts of Age. Let me double check my notes here.
It was basically a dumb student art film.
The Hearts of Age, yeah. And then he also did another film called Too Much Johnson, which was supposed to be like a prelude for a play that the Mercury Theater was doing, but the theater they were doing it in didn't have video projection, so literally no one saw it. Yeah. And everyone thought it was lost because it like burned down, and then they discovered it like 5 years ago.
Yeah, but the fact is they weren't very good. Like I said, they were just some college students, like art film, just practicing, which is fine because that's all I needed. He probably got as much as he needed to know from that and working in the theater as much as he did to make Citizen Kane. Yeah,
and he shot it more like you would shoot a play than you would shoot a film.
Yeah.
And the tactics that he used, he was very conscious of what people would be seeing. And he and Greg Toland worked really well and really closely together on that film. In fact, Greg Toland really wanted to work with him again and never got the opportunity to.
That's a shame.
Because Greg Toland didn't live too much longer after that. Greg was supposed to actually work on Magnificent Ambersons, but was already signed on to another film, so he couldn't. So,
I guess.
So, Citizen Kane. I think we've given our final thoughts there on Citizen Kane. I want to say
10 out of 10 would bang. That's my final.
Nice.
That's my rating.
How lewd. Do not let me leave you alone with my copy of Citizen Kane.
Great movie. That's what it's.
Too many holes in that DVD.
Oh, I think it's pretty common and pretty popular nowadays to kind of knock Citizen Kane, try to knock it down a peg because our millennial consciousness is whatever is established and whatever is good. Let's try to tear it down and rebuild something else that we like.
Honestly, you can't. It holds up even past that.
No, it absolutely does.
Even my petty qualms are still just nothing compared to the greatness that is Orson Welles' acting and his writing and filmmaking. I mean, I can say what I want. It's BS.
We know. And the fact that you admit it helps, though. But no, I mean, Orson Welles is personally my favorite filmmaker. Citizen Kane is personally my favorite film. He's not personally my favorite actor of all time. That would be Brando. But, he's like top 3. So.
Yeah. So, it's a good movie. I like it. It's okay. It's not my favorite Orson Welles movie. Not by a long shot, but
right. And I think we've got your favorite Orson Welles movie on the schedule down the line as well. But for another time. And I've got a couple more great Orson Welles films coming down the pipeline for you guys as well, because he's my favorite filmmaker, and there's no way I'm not going to showcase him as much as I can. But let's move on to It's a Wonderful Life. Yeah. Is it really? Let me ask you this question first, gentlemen. Is it really A Wonderful Life?
Hilariously, the most ironic title for a movie I've ever seen.
Why
It's like Guy Ritchie made
hilariously
this movie.
ironic, Sam?
Because this movie is, on the surface, a very happy-go-lucky movie, but deep down, it's the most depressing, wretched, like, look at real life that I've ever seen.
What
I've never
brings
been.
you to that conclusion, Sam? If I may ask.
He's not a man who achieves anything he sets out to do.
That's
At
true.
all.
In that case, you could say he's very much like a man.
He is a human. He is James Stewart is the star, who's objectively the greatest actor of all time.
Again, you keep using the word objectively, and I don't think you know what it means.
He's pretty good, though.
I think he knows what it means. I think he's deliberately using it in a way that cannot be backed up.
Guys, this is objectively something that I know to be true.
Yeah.
The Donald Trump style of arguing.
I do like
You know
Donald
it, I
a
know
lot.
it, everyone knows it.
What was I saying? Yes, no, this movie is just I think it's depressing because it hits so close to real life. It's human. Like, I don't think I've seen a movie in which someone just fails so miserably at their life. And it's not even he fails. He doesn't fail anything. He
Life
just
fails him.
Yeah, exactly. He is a
And I
man who
think
sets.
that's more to the point.
Yeah.
But then again, you've got then after that just like horrible crushing depression that hits about 2/3 of the way through the movie, you've got the last like 20, 25 minutes, half an hour of where it gets even more soul crushing. And then you get this huge wave of sentimentality and this huge just wave of corny 1940s emotion when you realize that your life is not just you living it. It's everyone that you come in contact with. And in some ways, this provides a perfect counterbalance to Citizen Kane, because Citizen Kane is all about how other people perceive you.
Mhm.
And this is kind of plays along that same vein, but it's what you do and how that affects other people.
Yeah.
To kind of take what Kane laid as a groundwork. And
It's just a very humbling. It's a humbling movie. It's a movie where life just knocks your knees out from under you, makes you bow to it. Because he has dreams and hopes. He wants to leave the town. He wants to go become. What do you want to do? You want to be an architect?
Architect, yeah.
He didn't want to be.
He wanted to adventure, and then he wanted to be an architect.
Yeah, he wanted to be an adventurer, travel the world.
Traveler, inventor, architect.
Yeah, but then he just thing after thing just keeps him staying back in town just a little bit longer.
Zuzu's freaking pedals.
Yeah,
Zuzu's pedals, man, dude. I don't know how those stupid pedals became so affecting, but dang it, they are.
It was almost the most important thing in the movie.
Really? Yeah,
Zuzu's
they were.
pedals.
If they're like, again, they don't even show up until that last third of the movie.
But man,
so, again, we could debate how significant they really are in the grand scheme of things.
Well, going back to like each little thing just holds him back. His dad dies, so he stays in town for a little bit longer. Meets a girl, stays in town for a little bit longer, has kids, and they get a house.
Stays in town a little bit longer.
Yeah. Then
there's a war that happens. Stays in town a little bit longer.
Oh yeah.
Because he's deaf in one ear because he saved his little brother who ended up being a war hero.
Yeah.
Stays in town a little bit longer.
I think it's hilarious.
His brother is an asshole. Stays in town a little bit longer.
Dude,
his brother is not.
Yes, he is though, because he totally bails. He totally bails on his responsibility to take over the building loan in order to take the job from his girlfriend, wife situation's father.
And here's the thing though, he wasn't going to take that job. George insisted he take it because George is a big-hearted, selfless individual.
But it doesn't matter though, because his brother should have seen through that and said, you know what, George has been knocked down by life over and over again, and it's my turn to get knocked down.
No one thinks about other people's lives like that. You don't make that kind of sacrifice. I mean,
whenever you're
George Bailey,
whenever your situation is as blatant as George Bailey's situation, and you're his brother and seeing all this stuff go down, I mean, he's literally back from the college that George paid for. That was supposed to be George's college.
Yeah.
Because their dad died. Like,
here's the thing that I don't get. Who gets married and doesn't even tell their family? Doesn't invite them to the wedding? If I had done that,
more to do with the period.
Would have killed me.
That might have been a time period thing. I mean, how do you even get a message to your parents back in the 19 whatever?
telegrams, telephones.
This
is like the 20s and 30s, man.
They don't even
pigeons.
They don't even have text messaging.
Oh, Caleb.
Let alone email.
Let alone Facebook Messenger or Skype. They can't even Skype about it. How are they supposed to tell anybody about
what year is this? 2002?
Yeah, seriously.
Freaking dark ages over here.
Yeah, but I think what got me most about the movie is that all these things happen. He's just going with it, trying to do best he can, and then life takes the ultimate shitter on him, puts him in a situation in which he could really actually go to jail for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Puts him in such an awful situation. I become an alcoholic, suicide alcoholic at that point. Like, wait, screw this.
That's actually something I didn't understand. What did he do that would have caused him to go to jail?
They didn't do anything. The money disappeared. So
the ultimate disappear.
Well,
no, we know what happened.
Uncle failure.
Uncle Billy.
Yeah. We know what happened. We knew what happened.
Well,
but there are laws.
That is a jerk, is what happened.
Right. But Uncle Billy knew that it was his failure that led to the money being gone. But because George Bailey is such a big guy, he took the blame for it to the bank inspector and to Potter. So that's why he was going to go to jail, because he took the blame for the money disappearing, and because the money disappeared, that's like a huge banking.
Yeah, it's like fraud. Like they think, you're fraudulent, you're stealing money from the company.
Right.
It's fraud. Basically,
all you really have to do is look into Potter's books and realize that.
Yeah, but they didn't
realize where the money.
I'm sure that Potter didn't put the $8,000 into his books.
Yeah,
he probably stuffed it into a drawer.
That is a man who probably commits fraud.
Let's
24/7.
Clearly,
also,
Potter fraud. No, that would never happen.
No.
So a little fun tidbit about that: Potter actually never gets there's no justice for Potter at the end.
No,
and that's kind of
no
fun.
Justice in life.
Because well, exactly. But it's funny is that actually that is a censorship issue from back in the day. The movies like the code of conduct back in the day required that the bad guy, the criminal, always had to either repent of their crime or come to justice, and that one slipped through the ratings.
Wow.
Yeah, that's true.
That's forward thinking right there. That's some progressive movie making. Man, we're really looking at like some of the most cutting edge movies of their time.
We really are.
Yeah, but it's just so weird how dark the movies. You always think of it as a Christmas movie. Like I always have all this like childhood nostalgia tied to it because my mom always had it playing. I sat down and watched it objectively for the first time, and I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, same here. I got a very different experience this time.
Yeah, it's funny how that works out. Like you always kind of think of and. Let's be honest, it's schmaltzy as I'll get out. It is so freaking sentimental. But I will admit, gentlemen, when those final chords of Hark the Herald Angel are playing, I'm sobbing like a baby because I'm seeing all the lives that George Bailey's touched, and I'm seeing what one man can do in the grand scheme of things. And I got to tell you, that hit me where I live, and I'm just. And maybe it was the soul-crushing depression of the first 2/3 of the movie, but that cathartic moment where everyone he knows, because he has spent his whole life breaking his back for these people, and then when he needs it absolutely the most, they just come out of the woodwork to do literally everything they can.
Which I find to be very unrealistic.
Yes, you're absolutely right.
Definitely in modern day, that would never happen. He would have gone to jail and committed suicide. That would have been how life works.
Yeah. Right, but again, this is.
I think it was a cop out. I think it was a cop out of an ending.
But
really, honestly,
the point of the film is not life sucks and then you die. The point of the film is one man does make a difference. One man's life does matter in the grand scheme of things.
But life sucks and then you die is objectively the truth, though. So you know.
See, I think that's more that thematic. That thematic analysis, I think, belongs more to our final film of the evening than it does to this one.
No, that one goes. That for that film, it's you suck and then you die.
I think we're getting a little ahead of ourselves because I don't know that we're done talking about It's a Wonderful Life.
I have a few notes. I have a few notes to talk about specifically about the performances given.
Yeah.
And at least one thought about a character specifically. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to just say Jimmy Stewart and Donna Reed are Some of the most awful singers I've ever heard in my entire life. They are so bad at singing. It is
Terrible.
amazing that they had them sing multiple times in this movie. It should not have happened.
But let's be honest, Caleb, how many people that you know are really good singers?
I get it. Like, the point was not that they were good at singing. It wasn't a musical, but like at a certain point you have to spare me, you know, as the filmmaker. spare me, please. Because it was awful. Also, George Bailey is he's kind of a creep. I mean, I don't know about how. I mean, look, I don't know about how you guys go about with, dealing with your women, but when a woman,
how do you deal with all your women?
But when a woman is disrobed in a bush, and you leer around the bush, discussing how much of a peculiar situation you've gotten yourself into, it doesn't seem like the correct way to woo a woman. It just doesn't seem like it would go over very well with a woman.
There are different times, Caleb. They didn't care about women back then. They were second class.
I think it worked out I think it was very fortuitous for George Bailey overall as a character that his father had a stroke at that moment, because I feel like his relationship with Mary would have gone very differently if that scene had been allowed to play out further.
How so?
I'd rather not discuss that, gentlemen.
Let's speculate how different.
No, I just think that she would have probably gotten a different perspective on how much of an ass he is, and then probably
he really is actually kind of an ass, even though he's a very generous, good-hearted man. He is also kind of an asshole.
Mm-hmm.
You do see elements of, I mean, particularly there at the end, when he's just completely defeated and broken down, and he's like screaming at his wife and kids. And
You mean they're at like the middle of the movie?
Well, the end of the chronological telling of the story, yes. Yeah, but when he's at his, most dire moment, and I mean, who isn't a complete a-hole at their most dire moment?
Well,
I mean,
I really think it's because he's actually a very optimistic human being, and optimism assholes actually keep playing as kind of the same. They coincide. Optimistic people are kind of assholes. And he's a very optimistic person. Yeah, I said it. But he's kind of an optimistic human being.
I think you're going to have to show your work on that one, Sam.
Well, he just he's so happy to go.
And I've been told I'm an asshole lot.
I mean, you're not going to get an argument from me, but go ahead, Sam.
He's so happy-go-lucky, you're going to tread on people. You're going to step on people's foot.
I wouldn't call him happy-go-lucky.
Like
He's
Potter.
too beleaguered to be happy-go-lucky.
I don't know. He's always positive. He's a very positive human being. I guess not maybe happy-go-lucky is not the worst. He's a very positive person.
I think that's the film in general.
He's cheery in spite of his circumstances, always.
Mm-hmm.
Compared to Citizen Kane and There Will Be Blood, this film has a much higher estimation of humans and of humanity than those other two films do. Because the other two films pretty much just see everyone as complete jerks.
Yeah.
And at the end, there's this idea that the more you give, the more is given unto you. Like that almost biblical idea. Almost biblical. It is biblical. That biblical idea of to whom much is given, much is required, and to he who gives much will he receive. Obviously, that's more in line of a heavenly reward, but George receives a portion of his on this side of eternity, I guess, would be kind of the way that breaks out. I don't know if I'm explaining this well or not.
No,
I'm gesturing with my hand as though I am.
Yeah.
Which no one listening to the podcast can see, but it's a very
for the deaf viewers.
Gesture.
For the deaf viewers, there'll be someone sign languaging.
There you go.
To them. I guess that makes sense.
That's horrible. But no, I mean, and so two major differences I saw between this film and either of the other ones, aside from the whole supernatural element of it that comes in, like that almost literal Deus Ex Machina there at the end. But first of all, it's treatment of people, and it's how it estimates and values humanity, and also the way it treats money. Because George, as an average guy, money is not, it is something that he desires, and it's something that he wants, but unlike Plainview and unlike Kane, it's never really something he has.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not really, and it turns out to be the thing he most desperately needs at the end. And I'm trying to articulate this in a way that makes sense. To some degree, I think that's just so we kind of have a frame of reference for like the desperation that he's in. But I mean, really, the whole film kind of revolves around money. I mean, it's literally what he does for a living. He's a building and loan. He works with money day in and day out, but it's never something he has. He gives money to people so that they can fund their dreams, but really never does anything to fulfill his own dreams.
Mm-hmm.
He tries.
He does so many times.
Always something takes away his money.
But again, I don't think it's something, or if it is something, it's George himself. It's that thing with George himself.
He gives his money away. He gives away his opportunity every time
he's a
it
decent
comes
human
up.
being. He's a decent guy.
I don't know. I wrote something down. I wrote something down in this in these notes pertaining to this thought, and what I wrote was George Bailey could have been a great man, but he was too busy being a good man.
Unpack that for me, Caleb.
So,
because I know you want to.
So, I mean, he had great ambitions. He was obviously smart and capable of achieving great things. He could have achieved greatness, but he was so busy trying to be a good man to the people around him that he failed to achieve any greatness, any of the great potential he had. And so all that potential that he could have done greater things for humanity for, he wasted on a small community of people.
But I think that's what the film is ultimately trying to get us to see, is that
I think so too, but I think that's the wrong message to send to people who might be the ones who cure cancer. You know, you might be a great mind. You might be a great mind who might do great things for humanity. But this movie is telling you should focus on the people around you, and you shouldn't think about the bigger picture, because it's more valuable to be comforting to the people around you who are dying of the ailment that you could solve, but you're not going to, because it's going to be more valuable to be a supportive, emotionally supportive, friend to them.
See, maybe it's the romantic in me, but I don't get that at all. Like,
I
don't think that's the point of the film at all. And I think you're just reading your own deeply disturbed nature.
No,
into that's the film.
That's not what's happening.
A little bit you are, though, because
no, you definitely are.
He did. He had great potential. Yeah. And he never accomplished any of the great things he could have.
And it's fine, but it's not a bad message.
And all he did is he put some people into some houses.
Okay. So
no, he gave them a chance at a life.
Yeah, like the Italian. He could
have built some sweet bridges.
Dude,
Martini.
Did you see?
Or maybe those bridges wouldn't have collapsed.
Takes him around town when he's never existed. Did you see that?
Yeah, but you know what? Most of the things that he did for people, he did before the time that he would have. Like, he saved his brother when he was a little kid. He saved Mr. Drug. Yes, he saved him when he was a little kid. He did so much stuff when he was growing up before he even got to the age where he was going to accomplish his big things, that, like, honestly, his life up to that point.
Not at all. The entire town was a slum hole because Potterville. If he wasn't doing the things he was doing, it would have been that town. That was like the entirety of the town, though. The taxi driver, the cops, they were all big pieces of shit.
Well, it would have been.
What's your face would have been a prostitute.
Arkansas's answer to Reno.
He led Hee Haw,
Sam Wainwright,
to start the factory in Bedford Falls, which of course would have helped out the economy there in Bedford Falls.
Yeah.
Which would have helped out the Pottersville situation anyway, because a better economy, thriving. Yeah, really?
Because they've all been living in freaking slum shitholes and didn't have their own nice homes.
But if there was more employment and they had more money, they would have been able to do more with their own selves. I mean, like, that is not. I mean, improving the economy in the town is helpful to the people in the town. It's plenty helpful. Did George not do enough? Honestly. George should have had the time to go and do some of the great things that he wanted to do. That's all I'm saying.
But I think George's mind and heart were never twisted when he was younger. If he'd have gotten what he wanted when he was a kid, he would have never looked back, because he didn't want to look back.
I think this is a very dark, twisted movie that sends a weird, twisted message to people.
I think it's just because
No,
you're a dark,
it says the right.
person.
It says the right message. It's like the opposite message of Citizen Kane and There Will Be Blood.
Exactly.
It sends the right message because those are movies which people do go on to do the greater things that you say, and look where they ended up.
Right.
I'm playing devil's advocate for this whole thing.
No, you're playing the devil. Is who you're.
No,
playing.
Kale.
No,
seriously.
I'm just advocating for him. I'm like a PR firm.
You're Mick Jagger is who
He
you are.
hired me. Am I going to turn him down? The money was good.
Okay, now you sound like Daniel Plainview.
Caleb wanted to go do greater things.
No, I have no interest.
Yeah, and
in
Caleb,
great
explain
things.
to us what you're doing with your life now, please.
Oh, I have no interest in doing great things.
Just
This
go
was
straight
just
about it.
this was just my observation of the movie. I have no real connection to this concept at all.
Okay.
I'm actually
That's
very
fair,
much
I suppose.
I am actually very much more focused on the idea of being close to the people around you. I actually my philosophy on life, a lot of people around me, like I hear a lot of people talk about death and like how they fear death and like how they fear about the legacy that they will leave and like they want to accomplish things to leave a legacy. And I don't get that at all because to me, I feel like just being who I am and interacting with people that I know and my thoughts, my actions, my whatever I contribute to that scenario, rubbing off on people a little bit is my legacy that gets carried on. And so like to me, I am like 100% in George Bailey's zone. Like that's where I live. That's where I thrive.
You are George Bailey.
That's what I am, George Bailey. I have given
Not
up
really,
so
no.
much. I have given up so much for those.
You're George
that I
Bailey without
care
the
about.
decency and generosity, really. Is what it is.
That's true. I have no generosity, but I'm pretty decent, though. I would say I'm pretty decent.
Jury's still out.
No, but like that's totally what I identify more with. Like as far as what the purpose of life is, like I'm not like nihilistic. I'm not like I'm pretty positive about that sort of thing. But I just thought that was just an observation I made of this movie. Like has nothing to do with my own feelings about anything. I just truly, I want you guys to know. I mean, honestly, deeply, this is
You
how I
heard it
feel.
here first, folks. Caleb thinks he's pretty decent. Any other thoughts on
At least one of
It's
us
a Wonderful
does.
Life? Anyone want to talk about the guardian angel angle?
Honestly, I feel
Seemed
like
kind of like it was just thrown in there.
well, it's weird because it's the entire catalyst of the story was the angel telling the other angel the whole story.
Yeah, it's
I know.
the framing device of the movie.
But it
Yeah,
doesn't
but-
seem very relevant, honestly.
Not in ultimately, yeah. At the end, the last because then he's down to 15 minutes. He helps to see that and everything's fine. I feel like you probably should expand the movie another 50 minutes. Maybe make it a little more smoother transition. Make it more relevant.
Just make it much longer. An already long movie, even longer.
It's not that long. It's
It
definitely
really
not.
isn't.
It's actually the shortest movie on our list,
That is true. It is the shortest.
which
one
is
on
weird
the
because
list.
that movie, I don't think I've ever actually seen the entire thing through. I only remember like entire spans of this human's life from my childhood.
Mhm.
I feel like I lived in a whole nother life. Yeah, it was a lot shorter than I remember it being.
Wow. Okay, that's fair.
Well, how
Well,
well
you're
did
probably
it,
also used to seeing it on TV with all the commercial interruptions.
I guess, which then comes out to like a 6-hour runtime.
I was going to say it's like 4 hours on TV. It's ridiculous.
It is.
well, how well do you think? Okay, I don't think. How well do you think it captures the essence of an entire life, though? Because that's
Well,
kind of
you
the
know
theme of
what?
this.
It is. I think it does okay, I guess. Yes, it does okay. I think because it's so hard to press and that captures an essence of a life. It captures a brutal reality. So I was able to relate to him a lot more than there
The
will be
other two
blood.
protagonists.
Yeah. I can't Plainview, and Kane. I was able to relate to him a lot. James Bailey,
George
George, Sam,
Played by
did you watch
James.
these movies?
Stewart.
Yeah, all three last night. James,
11th hour cramming.
very no, yeah. I mean, I was really able to relate to him a lot more because his life was so realistic to what life is.
Yeah,
It didn't really also go over the entirety of his life that much.
right.
Really, it kind of like halfway through.
I think to a certain degree, though, I agree with you. I do, but I think to a certain degree, it kind of caricaturized him, though. by presenting these situations where he was a saint basically all the time. And I don't know, to a certain degree, I feel like that there wasn't very many. I'm not sure that I fully relate to him as a person, because they basically only showed him being basically a god.
How do you not relate to that?
See, and I don't know.
I feel like that I feel like that it only captured like a caricaturization of what they wanted you to think about him.
See, and I don't think that's true at all. I think George Bailey is a deeply flawed individual.
Yeah, like even when you were talking about Caleb going back to his being kind of a creepy, he was kind of creepy actually. Like, I agree with you.
True.
I agree with you. There were some weird moments there, some awkward moments. I was
the moment at Christmas, where he comes home, and where he ultimately decides to end up marrying Mary. I mean, he's just downright awful to her in that scene. Like,
That's true. He
is terrible to her, and then going off on his wife and kids and his clearly mentally unstable uncle.
True.
I mean, this is
I don't know. I think
he
went easy on his uncle, though. To be honest, for the circumstances, I think he went easy on him. I think he took out a lot more of his anger on other people than he did on his uncle, who actually deserved it.
And instead, he took him out on his wife and kids.
Which is what you do. Teacher. So I guess that's relatable.
His wife's teacher, who probably got the worst of it.
Oh yeah, because then her husband punched him in the face.
Punched him in the face.
And then I think towards
this movie
the end,
has everything.
At the end, it's got action. It's got
drama.
It's got betrayal.
Angels.
It's got angels.
Implied
it's got rich old guys clinging to money.
Implied nudity.
It's got singing. It's something for everyone in this movie.
Inside of those bushes, there was nudity.
It's got vandalism that apparently people don't care about in that time.
Right.
That guy. I'm
houses.
like if I was that guy, I'd be chasing him down. But he's like, "Why don't you kiss already?" I'm like, "What?" They were just smashing out windows through the jeez.
They're not.
Yeah, but it wasn't his house.
Yeah, but I'd be pissed off. Don't come through my neighborhood on my street and start jacking shit up.
No, it's just the thing. It's just the thing you do to that house. Like,
clearly, Sam is a product of a very different era. I think that's what I learned here tonight.
A little bit. I don't know what era, but a different one.
Yeah. Certainly.
In that moment, George Bailey resolves to kiss her against her will. Like, she has not approved any kissing. She's just like,
It is well established.
Not what I want.
It's well established from early in the film that she is absolutely crazy about George.
Right, but she did not consent, and it doesn't matter how crazy you are. Consent is important no matter what.
Fair enough, but have you asked a woman if you can kiss her before you kiss her every time?
Yes, he did.
For the first kiss, that's something that you know. I mean, in my opinion.
Do you just grab her by the back of the head and look her deep in the
discuss.
eyes and say, "Would you mind if I kissed you right now?"
Yeah, it's just like
it takes all the spontaneity and all the romance like right out of it.
Well, no. What do you value in a relationship? Do you value spontaneous romance, or do you value like mutual understanding? And hey, you know what?
I don't think the two are mutually exclusive.
I have the failed relationship of this entire group here, because I am the one and only person who is divorced in this group. But yeah. I don't think that reflects badly on my perspective on this at all. I think it reflects badly on other circumstances more so than my opinion on this, because I think that the way that my relationship was handled in the early game was probably the absolute highlight of that particular relationship, and that other things contributed to the failure of it.
This is way too cryptic.
You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying?
I have no idea what you're saying.
You know what I'm saying, guys?
I didn't know you then.
You know what I'm saying, guys?
Vaguely.
This is way too cryptic. This is way too cryptic to make the final podcast.
Vaguely?
Well, look, guys. What I'm saying is, don't get married. It's a bad idea.
You say to the two married guys.
Well, no, I'm saying to the audience. Like, you guys are already married, so it's too late for you. Sorry about that. I would have told you about it, but I forgot.
Typical.
I was too busy.
You were Sam's best man. Come on.
I was too busy being divorced.
Well, if you look at the pictures, he's sitting there stroking his beard, trying to remember something. You can see in his eyes.
Yeah, it's true.
I forgot to tell him.
Well,
He is
What
really
was that
bitter in those
thing?
pictures.
As the moment I said I do, and I put the ring on her finger, he's like, "Oh yeah, hey, don't."
My favorite are the pictures that of Sam looking at Stephanie coming down the aisle, and Caleb just got this like death glare on his face, like just like staring Stephanie down over.
I think
his
that was out
shoulder.
of context.
I
don't know what the context was.
context
there.
is perfect there.
We were at a wedding. I don't know. There's all kinds of things going on.
What more context do you need, Caleb?
Well,
All
you know
right.
what? I've got a final word about It's a Wonderful Life.
Give it to us.
Zuzu at the very end says that teacher told her that every time a bell rings, an angel gets wings. And I thought, where is the separation of church and state in this world?
It didn't exist in the 1940s, man.
Oh, come on. The separation of church and state language comes back from antiquity. That's friggin' foundational language
Right, but here's the thing.
this
You
United
don't
States of
realize.
America.
In the 40s, it was pretty much generally assumed that everyone believed the same thing, and if you didn't,
You're a
you were
communist.
pretty much ostracized and labeled as a communist. So
Yeah, well, I'm just saying, for my 2016 sensibilities, I'm offended. I'm offended, the millennial that I am, and
Oh.
I think this movie, there should be reparations paid to me.
You and the
my
ACL,
offense.
you and the ACLU can build a time machine and go back in time.
Oh, you know what? That is probably how time machines are gonna get built. Is to go back in time and sue people for offending you.
okay, Sam. That's our next
gonna
movie
be
idea.
that's gonna be the motivation that is required to invent time travel.
There's like a whole novel in that one idea. I love it.
Not a good one, but there's a novel.
No,
Oh
not,
yeah.
not a good one at all. But hey, someone will write it. I
Mhm.
nominate
me.
Caleb.
Yeah.
Well, that's never gonna get written. Like, I'll get back to you guys in like 150 years when it's done.
No, I just build a time machine. Go back in time. Give yourself more time.
You know what? You made a good point there.
I
Wait a
did.
second. I'll still be aging.
No, you won't.
That's
Clearly,
not,
you don't understand how time travel works.
Well, maybe this is a different form.
Didn't
of
you ever
time
watch Quantum Leap?
travel. No, I didn't.
So, any final thoughts on Citizen?
I think we did it.
Yeah, I think Caleb gave us our final thoughts.
How about
let's
we
move
move
on.
on to There Will Be Blood?
There Will Be Blood. So what were our thoughts there on There Will Be Blood? My second favorite movie ever.
Worst
by
movie
the
of the
way.
century.
Anger.
Real dude.
Worst movie of the century. Worse than The Cell 2.
Worse than The Room?
Yeah, The Room is awesome. I've actually never seen it. I'm sorry.
I didn't think you had.
I don't watch this kind of movies.
I saw a YouTube video about it, so I feel like I've pretty much seen it.
Yeah, I've seen a couple of YouTube clips myself. But that's not the movie we're talking about. We're talking about
No.
There Will Be Blood.
We're talking about There Will Be Blood. Sam, why did you think it was the worst movie of the century?
Actually, I felt like it was super well acted. I was kind of pissed off by
Oh
it.
my gosh.
Oh, yeah. Don't. Okay.
The
So
acting.
the acting. Jeez, the acting is great. I mean,
It's phenomenal.
Daniel Day-Lewis.
the acting.
Oh my
What's
gosh.
what is his name? What is the actor's
Daniel
name? What is-
Day-Lewis?
No, the good one. The good one that's in that movie.
Daniel
That's his name.
Day-Lewis?
No, screw him. Screw Daniel Day-Lewis.
Day-Lewis
No.
because his performance was phenomenal.
Paul Dano
Paul Dano is also
Paul
wonderful in
Dano
that film.
was amazing in that. That movie tackled so many things that I've always questioned to myself, and no one ever asked until I saw that movie. And that movie asked the same questions. Didn't get answers because no one knows the answer, but it definitely asked the questions.
No, you
You
don't.
ask the
get
question,
any
it's going to leave it to someone else to answer.
Yeah.
Boy,
No.
howdy will it.
No, I thought the movie had a fantastic first 15 minutes because I'm like, am I watching 2001 Space Odyssey? with
Oh
Will?
yes, the first 15 minutes is amazing.
Where no
I was
one's
actually
talking.
gonna say something about that. It's such a great first 15 minutes of the movie. Whenever I watched this movie before, and the first time I watched it, my like general takeaway was kind of mostly kind of meh. So like whenever I was thinking about it when we were talking about doing this movie as a topic, when I thought I did not remember how excellent the first 15 minutes were, and whenever they happened, I was like, this is the most engaging thing I've ever watched.
Well, in my thought, when I first saw it, I was like, this is how you make movies. Everyone, if you want to know how to make a movie, watch that. Because that's how you make movies.
Mhm.
Like, it's downright. But then after that, when Daniel Day-Lewis started to talk with words, that's when I started to have issues.
when the first words were uttered, it was kind of disappointing that there were words. I don't think it was Daniel Day-Lewis's fault because I thought he did it. I did think his performance was stellar.
Yeah, absolutely.
His performance is probably my favorite film performance.
I feel like the fact that there were words, I feel like the fact that words happened was the disappointment. Because up until that point, it was amazing.
Well, outside of the cinematography and the acting, everything after that was kind of okay. Up until then you get to the last scene, which is what asked the questions that I've always asked, but did not answer.
About drainage and milkshakes?
No.
Yeah.
About...
the milkshake drainage turmoil that we all face internally.
Yeah, that's actually a reference to that time period. There's a that's actually from a famous quote from, there was a investigation into a bunch of politicians taking bribes.
What was the context? Well, I mean, you gave me the context. What was he saying? Like, what did that quote have to do with involving him taking bribes?
I think he was basically admitting guilt. That's what he was doing. He was talking about the whole concept of what they were doing was, yeah, you had your milkshake, I have mine, but then I'm using a straw to siphon out yours.
So he was explaining the milkshake. He was essentially explaining the mechanism by which he was committing the fraud.
Basically.
Okay, I see.
Classic guy.
You know, it's kind of a weird analogy though, because because it doesn't really actually describe what is happening with the oil. Because he's not really reaching a straw under there. It's more like the concept is that there is this vast field of oil underneath the ground, and if you're sucking it out at one point, then you're also draining out the surrounding areas.
Well, that's what happens when you give an actor liberties. They start making up their own shit that doesn't make no sense.
Well, no, but I don't think we know how straws and milkshakes work here, because if two straws are going after the same milkshake.
Let me tell you, Steven, I know a few things about straws and milkshakes.
Do you, Caleb, though? Do you really?
Oh, I have happened upon many a straw and shake scenario, situation, if you will. There have been shenanigans. All right. So I know. Take it from me. I'm a man who knows. I consider myself a milkshake man.
Do when you start to make them, do like boys start showing up in your yard?
Russian boys do.
Oh, I don't make milkshakes. That's ridiculous. Women make milkshakes.
All right, ladies, send your angry complaints and comments to Caleb Dunkerson.
Oh, I remember where we were at with the conversation. I was talking about how a solid 15 minutes in between and then a really good ending scene. And you guys said milkshakes, and I came with my little factual tidbit. Half-assed factual tidbit.
So you, I mean, really the only part of the film that you really enjoyed were the first 15 minutes and then like the final, say, 10 minutes.
Basically, yeah. And I mean, there were things I thought the acting was phenomenal. I mean, A+++ OEM quality for acting. And the cinematography was mind-blowing, especially when I found out that for some of the shots where the colors were weird, they actually used a lens from one of the director's like antique cameras. He has a projector, a camera from the 1914s, and they used a lens. They retrofitted to that and filmed some of the shots of it. That's why you get some of those weird colored shots.
I would just like to point out for the audience just how like insular and specific that reference that Sam made earlier when describing the quality of the acting was and the cinematography, because he was referring to the grading system used by cell phone repair parts suppliers to describe the quality of a cell phone part. That A++ OEM grade would makes no sense to anyone unless you are in that industry.
Which is why I think we should just leave it as is and not include an explanation.
No, the people
and see
need
if people get it. And the people that do get it are going to be our true fans for the rest of our days.
I don't know if I want them.
I do.
I don't either. I hate those people.
And you are one.
I am hoping for a different crowd.
Self-loathing party of one.
The story of Sam's life.
That's my take. That's my take on it. So far in this conversation, my take might change because sometimes you guys present me ideas that then I never thought about, and then I'm like, oh my gosh, my entire opinion changes. So we'll see what happens. That's what my opinion is so far. What's going on with you guys and your thoughts on that?
Yeah, Steven, let's hear about your thoughts about this movie because you seem to be the most impassioned about the quality of it.
I
love this movie.
I do want to say one thing. This is definitely the superior Thomas Anderson.
For me, it's between this and The Master. But yes, this is a wonderful, wonderful film.
No, I'm saying this is the superior. The guy, the Paul Anderson who made this is definitely the better of the Paul Andersons that exist in Hollywood because there are more than one.
Of the various Paul Andersons,
that's true.
This is the best.
Of all the P. Andersons, this is the superior P. Anderson.
Then, I don't know.
I thought you were just talking about his films in general.
No, this is not even his best at all. Absolutely,
I would say either this or The Master would be his best work. But
no, freaking Inherent Vice is the best. Anyways, really? Yeah, we'll talk about that sometime.
We'll throw that one on the schedule for some reason.
Yeah, because it's a great movie. People don't get it. I don't understand why people don't get it, but that's for a different time.
Sorry. I've only seen it the once, so I'm not a good judge.
Okay, I've seen it.
But that's neither here nor there. No, part of what I love about this film is just how much Daniel Day-Lewis's performance drives the narrative, because it absolutely does. And if you had, I think, any other actor playing that role, this movie would have not been half as good as it is, because his and I would say the same with the cinematography. If you had any other cinematographer working it would probably not have been half as good. I mean, all of the disparate elements in this film work together so well to make it what it truly is. But what I like about Plainview, and I compared him to Orson Welles in not Charles Foster Kane, but Orson Welles, because what Plainview does for himself is what Welles is attempting to do with Kane. Welles is trying to keep Kane at a distance so that we never really know him. Plainview wants that for himself. He is constantly evasive. He never gives a straight answer. He doesn't even answer direct questions about himself, his plans, his past, his son, any of it. And you can always tell that when someone starts to ask those questions, when someone tries to get to know him, he gets really evasive, really defensive. And and to me, I wonder if it's even possible to know who this guy is.
It is. He does
say that about Kane.
Yeah, he presents a lot of different personalities in this movie, surprisingly enough. The first half of it, I'm kind of empathetic towards him. Mm-hmm. And I get it, because he lives in a ruthless world. He kind of be ruthless, but at the same time, he's not necessarily a ruthless person. But then he just kind of turns savage on me, and I don't understand when that even happened.
Yeah, there's a moment.
Same place I'm at.
And I think, again, this is a movie that I've, like all these films, I've seen it several times. So there are certain things that I was looking for. And while I wasn't directly looking for that moment, I think there's kind of a chunk of film that really leads to that savageness. And I think by his own admission, when he says to his brother, I've got a competition in me, I don't want anyone else to succeed. That's really the most honest he is about himself in the whole film.
I guess he's just very deceptive, because when you get to the part where he's talking to his son, like the whole thing with his son actually not being really his son, which I didn't pick up on the first time until the end when they start talking about it, and I was confused. And definitely a little more obvious the second time if you're actually watching this Chip movie.
Yeah, you gotta watch that first 15 minutes.
Yeah.
You're actually paying attention to that incredibly enthralling first 15 minutes, and you'll realize.
Yeah, it's just he's just absurdly cruel to his son, which I felt like he was very kind to, and then random moments he's just like savage to him.
I think that just comes down to like the anger being the word to describe this movie. Like his anger is like the catalyst for like all the things that he does, all the crazy out there things that he does are just purely anger driven.
And they really are. Like his anger with religion, that's never explicitly stated, but is so obvious.
Obvious.
Like whenever he deliberately goes out of his way to pull up Eli's sister.
Yes,
and speak the words daughter of these hills.
And he's glaring at Eli the whole time.
I loved that scene because I effing hate Eli. Like that was such a great performance, and I thought it was the performance needed to be there, and that was a very important performance, I think, in cinema. I hated that character so much though, but like just the way he treats everything. Like then he started like he bought that girl in the dress, and then there's another part I didn't pick up until the second time watching through it. He's at a table eating food, and she's running by, and he stops her and says, "No more beatings from your dad.
No more hitting."
Yeah,
The
no, he
dad-
turns around. The dad's sitting
The
right
dad's
there.
sitting right there.
Right.
Yeah.
I never
Yeah.
picked that up. Yeah, I was like,
Yeah.
And he glares right in the eye. No more
Yeah.
hitting.
yeah.
I mean,
love-
and so you're right. Early in the film, he does seem like a very decent man. And then two things happen. One, he strikes oil, and he strikes oil big. And his son goes deaf. And so he sends his son away. And then immediately after that happens, his brother, his quote unquote brother, enters the picture. And he finds someone that he can confide in again, and someone that he can mentor again, because he really can't do it with his son anymore, because his son can't hear the wisdom that he's
yes.
imparting. And then
Essentially, his son is shut off to him, which was like his most human experience.
Absolutely. And so he starts to feel that again, and then he realizes that Henry is not Henry, and that Henry is a complete and total fraud. And I think that's the moment when it starts to break off, and then when HW comes back and is just so contemptuous to him. I think that's the rest of it. The rest of it just kind of falls off the rails right there.
Well, you know what?
And it's all downhill from there.
Did you pick up what his son did? His son knew that he wasn't who he said he was and tried to burn him.
Mm-hmm.
That's why he started the fire, and then he sent him away after that. He thought, I'm not going to deal with this anymore. It's like that kid knew who he was and tried to burn him. That's crazy.
But he failed to communicate it.
Yeah.
And then
so good.
Then he needs to buy that tract of property and forces the guy to join the church. It's a good movie.
It is.
I agree.
A good movie.
It's a beautiful film. I absolutely love it.
The cinematography gets me.
It's so good though.
It is.
And can we other than the milkshake line, can we just talk about that last scene for a little bit before we go? Because
that's the one I wanted to get to.
That scene is amazing.
That scene asks questions that I've always thought to myself but never asked.
Such as,
do wolves in sheep's clothing sometimes believe they are actually who they say they are?
Yeah, that's the question I've always had. Is does Eli's character actually believe what he's saying?
Yeah, and I think the only person that can really answer that question is Paul Dano.
Yeah.
Because
the thing is, he couldn't answer that question because that question is a bigger philosophical question overall. I see this on TV. I see this on the billboards and stuff. Do some of these people who are preaching these prosperity gospel and stuff actually maybe believe what they are saying?
Does Joel Osteen believe what he's saying?
Is that what we're getting at?
Not necessarily, but that's what I've always wondered to myself, and that's what this movie actually tackled. What in it was maybe he is obviously a con man. But part of him maybe actually believed it also.
Yeah, and I think part of the reason Eli exists is to provide a really nice counterpoint to Daniel Plainview, because he's every bit as ambitious as Daniel is, but he doesn't have that kind of ruthless cunning that Daniel has to really go after, because he never gets the money. Did you catch that? Like Daniel promises him $5,000 and literally never gives it to him. Even in that final scene, he says, "I want the money that you owe me with interest." So years have passed and he still doesn't have the initial payment that he was promised. So, I mean, he's just as ambitious. He's just as greedy, but he's not as shrewd and he's not as cunning as Daniel is.
You know, one moment that I actually did not really understand in the movie is when Eli comes to there's a scene where he comes to ask about the money. He's like, where is my money? It's like while they're still working in the oil field, and he just and Daniel Plainview just like beats the crap out of him and smashes him down in the mud. And I don't understand what the context of the beatdown was. Maybe I missed something, but like, do you guys remember or have any thoughts about what the scenario was there? Because I really don't understand it. Like, Eli just comes out and he's like, "I want the $5,000. And Daniel's like, "I'm going to just beat you to death. I'm just going to beat you down and smash you into the mud,
Yeah.
And that's shortly before he Eli goes back home and goes off on his father for being a fool.
Well, and it's that kind of trickle down where, he's powerless against Plainview, but he does have the power over his father. And so,
I'm just curious why
crap rolls
Plainview
downhill.
decided to be. I'm just curious what that moment sparked.
He was clearly an
putting a
asshole.
beat
So.
down.
Give me just a second here. I'm gonna pull up some Wikipedia here. I'm gonna do your job for you, Caleb.
I'm not the research guy. I'm just a fact check guy.
That's the same thing.
No facts needed to be checked.
Context
I'm not like
within
some
the
sort of
film.
investigative reporter.
Give me just a second here.
I search the facts. I go to Snopes. That's all I do.
Libertarians hate Snopes.
Well,
okay. At that point,
Snopes probably hates the libertarians.
No, they're libertarian. That's what I don't get.
What has just happened when that scene takes place is they've just struck oil, and HW has just gone deaf.
Right.
So you've got these mounting frustrations, and then of course Eli basically saying it's because I didn't get a chance to bless the well. God is doing this to you. Oh, and by the way, give me my money. And that I think that is the final straw for Daniel, and he just needs someone to lash out at and needs someone to overcome, and so he just beats the ever-loving tar out of him.
Yeah, okay, but those events don't exactly directly coincide with one another because Eli gives him that speech about how this could have been avoided whenever the guy dies in the well.
But then after having this guy
strike.
But one event precedes the others.
Right. I mean,
so
it's
that
true.
which precedes informs that which follows.
This would just build on top of that. But I'm just saying, like, that direct interaction did not directly precede this. That was quite a bit before it. But, I get it. Like, at the same time, though, he was promised this money, and I just I felt like that the full on just like beat down that Plainview goes on, like, just seemed like a little bit just almost out of nowhere, because he was just like standing around with his business partners, and then he's like, I'm just gonna go beat this guy up.
But by the same token, we all hate Eli just as much as he does. So there's a part of us that's going, yes, thank you for finally doing what we all.
There was a part of me that was going yes, but then there was another part of me that was going, but this doesn't. But why? But why now? Why here? Why now? Whatever. It's not important. That's clearly this must not be a very important moment in the movie. It's just just a thought I had. Forgive me.
And then there's the time that Daniel, completely bludgeons him to death with a bowling pin. That was pretty.
Whoa,
no, that was fine.
Spoiler alerts.
We don't do spoiler alerts here, Sam.
Oh, yeah, if you haven't seen this movie by this time, you're just uneducated? No, uncultured. You're just uncultured.
No, you're ignorant.
It's almost 10 years old. So
you're ignorant of the content of this movie because you didn't see it before you watched this, listened to this podcast.
Yeah,
I drank a whole St. Bernardus, guys. I'm not like super sharp right now.
Hey, the only thing I'm just glad that There Will Be Blood's not considered one of the greatest movies of the century.
Oh, did it not make the top 100 BBC?
No, it's actually like number 2
list?
or 3 or something.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
okay.
Because it's an amazing film.
It's not.
That is pretty high up there.
Yeah.
I am going to say, though, I think this, in any other year, I think this film would have won Best Picture. The only reason that it didn't was because of No Country for Old Men.
Yeah, I will say that.
Yeah. That's some tough
because in any other year, and honestly, I think this film will stand the test of time a little longer than No Country for Old Men. That's just me personally.
Disagree with you so much.
I disagree as well.
Okay, that's fine.
But that'll be for another time.
Yeah, we'll do that when we get around to doing No Country for Old Men. But
we'll get around that when we get into the Coen brothers as a topic for an entire podcast.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that needs to happen.
Here's the thing. I want to go back. You said if it had any other cinematographer. I want to point out this cinematographer is actually a really bad cinematographer. He's made like almost all of his movies he's ever made have been nominated for a Golden Raspberry Award. He's
really?
Not good.
He pulled out a miracle here.
Yeah.
It worked here because he only ever won the Oscar for it.
He works on all of Paul Anderson's movies, but like everything else that's not that is just really, really bad. Oh, he did Nightcrawler. Never mind.
Oh, he did? Okay.
Nightcrawler was so good. Okay.
But he also
My ears
did.
perked up. Nightcrawler is amazing.
But he also did Salt, The Town,
Most
Born
underrated
Legacy, Giggly,
movie.
Jiggly.
Jiggly.
Jiggly. Yeah. I don't know. He's definitely very hit and very miss. Just miss. He hit
Yeah,
like
but may I
twice.
say that Nightcrawler is the most underrated movie of 2000, whatever that year was.
Of the century.
Yes, I'll go with that.
2014.
Thus
Yeah,
far, most
I would
underrated
say-
movie of the century.
I would definitely say of the century so far.
Best performance I've ever seen of any actor ever. Jake Gyllenhaal, you're a god.
All right. Any final thoughts on There Will Be Blood, gentlemen?
Well, I feel like my final thought was not. No one really. I don't know. Caleb knew what I was saying. I feel like Steven didn't get what I was trying to say about the whole wolves in sheep's clothing, believing what they believe. But
No,
I guess
I-
maybe there's
I
nothing else to say to
absolutely-
it.
I
I guess-
absolutely
I
got
think
there.
I think you should watch it. I think you should watch There Will Be Blood. I don't think that you will be happy with it.
No, it's honestly kind of boring.
It's a little bit long for what it accomplishes in that time, but it does do some cool things, and I think it's worth watching.
One final question before we go tonight, gentlemen. Which film of the three do you think best, and I know we've kind of discussed this already, but which of these three films do you think best captures the life of its subject?
It's a wonderful
I'm
life.
gonna go. I would have to say It's a Wonderful Life also, but
Why, Caleb?
I
And then we'll
also
go to Sam.
no. I agree. I mean, I think I'm gonna say exactly what Sam is gonna say. So it just I think it was a more probably, even though you have my comments about how it's kind of a characterization because it's like he's such a saintly person, he just like sacrifices himself in a way that I think that no real human being ever possibly would, and they kind of portray him as being self-sacrificing all the time, which I don't think is hugely realistic and not hugely relatable. But at the same time, he's kind of a creep, so I guess that makes him more relatable because we're all kind of creeps, aren't we? But
Yeah. So
You, me, and Tom York.
oh, Sam, dear sweet Sam, you are not the one who gets to
Seriously.
decry this. The some of us are not creeps thing. You are not the one who gets to do that, Sam. But
What's that supposed to mean?
Sam, you're a creep. You're a weirdo.
No, I'm not.
You don't belong here.
I see what you did there. Okay.
Hey, that's pretty much it. I mean, George Bailey's a little bit of a creep. We're all a little bit of creeps. Sam is especially a creep.
Him and Tom
I don't know.
York.
I think that I think that in terms of managing to sidestep the issue entirely, I think Citizen Kane probably, if I had to pick the best film out of this topic or this theme, I think I would pick Citizen Kane because I think that Citizen Kane accomplishes a more interesting thing than any of the others just by being different and as I said before, kind of being more of a deconstruction of the concept of telling the story of somebody's life.
Which is
more
interesting because
than-
it's the earliest film on the list.
I know, but of course it is not the first telling of a life story, you
Sure.
know. So I think it just serves as an interesting take on the concept more so than either of the other two films. So for me, I would pick it as the best, but not necessarily the best answer to your particular question, Stephen.
Okay, that's fair.
So
Sam?
Well, my personal favorite is going to be It's a Wonderful Life, but not to discredit the other two, because objectively speaking, Citizen Kane is the superior movie. Like, in terms of cinematography, acting, the way the story is actually told, I like.
Mhm.
I did like the narrative a little bit. There Will Be Blood, obviously, is also objectively better, speaking like acting wise, cinematography. Actually, I don't much care for the story all that much, but my personal favorite is It's a Wonderful Life because to me it is actually more realistic. Even though if you ignore the little fantasy, like the unnaturally happy ending to this little fantasy tidbit at the last few minutes there, it actually is a much more realistic movie to actual life. People have dreams, they have hopes, they set out to do something, but there's always something that holds them back. And you eventually just end up in a, not even necessarily a rut. You just have to look at it and appreciate what you have and work with what you have. And that's what I think you're supposed to learn is that, yes, you had all these hopes and dreams and you lost all of them, It's just due to little tiny circumstances, nothing even big, just small stuff. You have to appreciate,
like your father having a stroke and dying.
Yeah, but that's going to happen anyways.
And thus rescuing you from a situation where you might have alienated the girl of your dreams.
Yeah.
I mean, he took one for the team in a big way, but Papa Bailey really saved everybody in that situation, because without that scenario, I mean, Zuzu probably wouldn't have existed. I mean, the other kids whose names I don't know probably wouldn't have existed. I mean,
Tommy, Janie, and I forget the oldest kid's name.
Yeah, I don't care. No one cares. So,
so those really, of you who care, please email Caleb Dunkerson.
To a certain degree, I mean, if you think about it, he and Mary kind of were a team in changing all of those people's lives. So, to a certain degree, his father having a stroke kind of set up all of the great things he did for the town anyway, because he wouldn't have done any of those things if his father hadn't had a stroke. So it's really his father who is the real hero of the story for having just died. That's what he did to be the hero.
You are a really twisted individual, Caleb.
Well, that's all I've got to say.
Well, I'm actually going to agree, and this terrifies me to do, but I'm going to have to agree with Sam. As the films go, my least favorite is probably It's a Wonderful Life. But in terms of life story and what it accomplishes, I think it comes closest to the mark of what a life story portrayal in Hollywood probably should be, if for no other reason, because it tends to capture more of the minutia. It captures the day-to-day. It captures kind of some of the mundanity. Obviously not so much that we're like stuck in a Ulysses kind of situation where we literally follow a guy from the moment he wakes up until he goes back to bed and his wife's doing whatever she's doing next to him. But I mean, we get into just some of the inanities of life and the decision, and it reflects on this idea that the decisions we make that seem completely inconsequential in the moment can have lasting repercussions on who we are and the person that we come to be later on. For me, I think it just hits the line, the plumb line there is true. And I don't know. For me, that's the best example of the life story of those three films.
So you heard it from the mouth of Steven. It's a Wonderful Life is the greatest film ever made.
That's not what I said, and not even remotely close to what I believe.
All right, well, this was a great podcast, guys.
I think so too. Well, that is it for us today on Rule of Thirds. Want to join in the conversation? Find us on Facebook at Rule of Thirds Podcast. We're also on Twitter and Instagram at Thirds Rule. Got a suggestion for a future theme or a film you'd like to see us take on? Email us at ruleofthirdspodcast@gmail.com. This has been episode 101 of the Rule of Thirds podcast, aptly titled It's a Wonderful Life Story. All rights reserved. Join us next month as we take a look at 3 new films and find all new reasons to hate each other. For Samuel Dumas and Caleb Dunkerson, I'm Stephen Foxworthy. Until next time, remember, Thirds Rule.
I'm finished.